Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, college students in Knox County entered new classrooms this morning as Southeast Community and Technical College's Knox County campus opened its doors for the first time. And the general election is less than 1 month away, but some important deadlines are a lot sooner.
And cool weather on the way tonight and tomorrow, but milder weather is in our future as well. The latest on if that milder weather comes with rain chances coming up as Mountain News at 5:30 starts now.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. After 5 years in the making, Southeast Kentucky Community and Technical College finally added a 6th campus. WYMT's Dakota Makris reports on how the new campus benefits the community and how it gets students ready for the job market.
Hopefully we'll be a big success, but Barbourville definitely needed a campus.
Southeast Kentucky Community and Technical College opened the doors to its new Knox County campus to students Monday morning. The first student arrived at 7:40 a.m.
For them to show up 20-30 minutes early before class and, looking for their classroom, wanting to know when they can start. I feel like it's a great opportunity once again for everyone.
The campus offers classes like welding, plumbing, phlebotomy, among others.
In the spring, we will, because of equipment delays, we will have computerized manufacturing and machining. We will have industrial maintenance, fiber optics.
I talked with student Teresa Foley. She lives in Barbourville. She enrolled in computer and information classes along with human services.
The computers, it changes daily. So the more you learn, the more knowledge you have, the better experience you're going to have in life.
Is saying this gives current and future students the chance to cut down on debt and pay less for tuition compared to a 4-year university.
The more we can get out there, and it's a great opportunity for these students because as soon as they get their certificates, they can go to work.
Helping students succeed in Knox County. Dakota Makris, WYMT Mountain News.
The college will host a grand opening for the new campus this Wednesday morning at 10:30.
Well, around the region, across the mountains, it is beautiful out there this afternoon and this evening. As afternoon turns into evening, of course, it's looking pretty darn nice. Here's a look from our camera at Mount Vernon along I-75. Not a cloud in sight, just like we've been dealing with all afternoon long. Same thing, we head on down to Whitesburg. Things are looking beautiful there along Main Street at this hour. Excuse me, temperatures upper 60s, low 70s all around the mountains. 66 Prestonsburg, 65 Pikeville, cooler spots there in the Big Sandy. 63 over there in Clintwood as well. Satellite and radar, yes, this is in motion, just not a lot of motion out there with a rather quiet weather picture throughout the evening. Keep that First Alert weather app handy throughout the night. You may not need it tonight, even though we are falling down into the 40s for us as we head through tonight. And eventually some of us near the upper 30s. But you might need its radar functionality a little bit later on this week. Details on that coming up in a few minutes. Steve?
Evan, thank you. With midterm elections less than 1 month away, county clerks are aiming to keep everyone informed on current voting procedures and answer any questions folks may have before Election Day. WYMT's Alyssa Williams has more.
With midterm elections underway, many county clerks' offices across the Commonwealth are staying busy.
Okay, we have to get all of our ballots prepared. We have to make sure all the names are spelled right. And we've already started sending ballots out. We've probably sent like 50 out.
Those with the Breathitt County Clerk's office say along with their own election prep, they have to ensure everyone who is eligible to vote is prepared as well.
Okay, on Election Day, if you'll take your ID, it's a whole lot easier rather than have to wait in line.
If you are unable to vote in person on November 8th, there are other options for you to consider.
We have like the excuse in-person early voting, and it starts on October the 26th, 28th, 31st, and November the 2nd.
Anyone with a legitimate excuse of absence can utilize these dates, but those without an excuse still have the option to vote early as well.
And we also have no excuse voting. Anybody can come in and vote, and that's on the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th.
Absentee mail-in voting is still available for anyone who cannot make any of the in-person voting options.
It's our right and our duty to vote and to make sure your voice is heard and you go out and support the candidate that you feel will best represent you.
equipping Kentuckians with the information they need to voice their vote next month. Alyssa Williams, WYMT Mountain News.
Now here's an important deadline that's coming up very soon. If you are not registered to vote, you can do so at your county clerk's office or online, but the deadline to do that is tomorrow at 4 p.m. For those needing an absentee ballot, you can find information online at vote.org. Last week we told you about Darrell Brooks and showed you a clip of his court hearing where the judge had him removed from the courtroom for disrupting her. Well, today he apologized to that judge. Brooks is the man accused of killing 6 people and injuring dozens more after driving an SUV through a Wisconsin Christmas parade in 2021. Brooks is representing himself at trial.
I should carry myself with better respect than that. I wasn't raised that way. And I owe you, Your Honor, in the court an apology. And I'm going to stand up as a man and tell the whole court and you, Your Honor, that I apologize to the bailiffs, that I apologize for my actions.
Well, during that apology, Brooks told the judge that last week was emotional, and that is why he acted in such a manner. The judge told Brooks she appreciated the apology. He previously pleaded not guilty by insanity. However, his public defenders withdrew the insanity plea in September. The attorneys later filed a motion to withdraw from the case, and the judge ruled to allow Brooks to represent himself at trial. Former Mississippi Governor Phil Bryant is facing a subpoena related to Brett Favre. The NFL Hall of Famer is caught up in a civil suit over an alleged multi-million-dollar welfare fraud scandal. Attorneys for the defendant, Austin Smith, say they want to see communications between the ex-governor and athlete. The state is suing Smith for the return of more than $425,000. It's also accusing Favre of pressuring a company in which he was invested to seek nonprofit money. The Ukrainian Running Club of New York is calling on New York City's marathon to ban any athletes currently living in Russia or Belarus from participating. In March, the New York City Marathon said it won't recognize a Russian or Belarus representation, but they can participate independently. The New York Roadrunners said in a statement the organization will not discriminate against individual runners based on their nationality or country of birth. Other athletic competitions have banned Russians and Belarusians from competing, including the Boston Athletic Association, which operates the Boston Marathon, as well as the TCS London Marathon and even the International Olympic Committee. More than a dozen U.S. airport websites were temporarily knocked offline this morning, and Russian-speaking hackers are claiming responsibility. The hacking affected 14 websites, including those for major airports in both Atlanta and Los Angeles. There were no immediate signs of impact to actual air travel, but it may have impacted people seeking travel information. The hacking group, known as KillNet, listed multiple airports as targets. The group also claimed responsibility last week for knocking out U.S. state government websites, as well as briefly immobilizing a U.S. Congress website in July. KillNet stepped up its activity after Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February, specifically targeting organizations in NATO countries. TSA says it is investigating the hacking. Russia launched more than 80 missiles into cities across Ukraine Monday, killing about a dozen people and injuring dozens more. Russia says the strikes were retaliation. The U.S. calls it unprovoked aggression. CBS's Skylar Henry has more from the White House.
President Biden condemned the Russian missile strikes that rained down throughout Ukraine Monday. He said these attacks killed and injured civilians and destroyed targets with no military purpose. They once again demonstrate the utter brutality of Mr. Putin's illegal war on the Ukrainian people. Ukrainian officials say the Russians had 2 targets in mind: energy infrastructure and people.
The war against civilians. Putin needs Ukraine without Ukrainians.
There were dozens of civilian casualties in the strikes, and Ukraine says at least 11 major energy infrastructure targets were hit. There are now many Ukrainians left without power, water, or heat. The energy targets has raised concerns that Russia will use energy to punish Ukraine and its European allies this winter. President Biden and other leaders of the Group of 7 nations will hold an emergency virtual summit Tuesday to discuss the latest developments in Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin called the strikes a retaliation for this: a bomb exploding on the bridge that connects Crimea with Russia, and in a sign that the war could soon escalate even more. Belarus's president, Alexander Lukashenko, says Russian troops will deploy to his country in large numbers. Russia used Belarus to launch attacks on Kyiv when the war started in February. Skyler Henry, CBS News, the White House.
Russia has recently announced 300,000 men will be drafted into the military, giving a much-needed boost to the number of soldiers needed to fight in the war. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, are you already making your list and checking it twice? Why experts suggest you should start your holiday shopping soon.
And more sunshine on the way tomorrow before some changes move into the forecast. The latest timeline for later this week coming up after this.
WYMT News app.